The sport of fishing is recreation that's also big business. According to the American Sportfishing Association, fishing has a $129 billion impact on the U.S. economy every year and supports nearly 1 million jobs. Much of that revenue is earned by gear and tackle companies, which are constantly innovating new products that make it easier for all of us to catch fish. And good for them. Without their drive and genius, we might all be standing on the bank still fishing with cane poles. But a strong argument could be made these guys have done their jobs too well, and that fishing, as we know it, both high-dollar tournament fishing and also kind of weekend angling is changed forever and potentially not for the better. You know, back in prehistoric times, which, you know, now is basically just 10 years ago, you had to use your skills to read water and also add that to what you know about fish migration patterns, bait fish migration patterns, to figure out areas that fish might be holding in. But now with technological advancements in forward-facing sonar like Garmin's Livescope, you don't have to cast and hope for a bite to prove your hypothesis correct. You need to only look at your electronics, which show you in real time whether or not fish are in a particular area. For the angler, there's no more wasted time casting to barren water, hoping to get a bite. If your electronics show you there are no fish there, you just simply move on. Of course, that certainly sounds good, particularly for anglers who are fishing tournaments. You have to waste a bunch of time scouting in water that doesn't have any fish, but therein lies the problem. Historically, there have been certain areas on lakes or rivers or bayous or whatever you fish that hold fish that really nobody knows about. Those fish kind of live their whole lives unmolested, no pressure on them, and those fish contribute, obviously, every year to the spawn. Well, now those fish are no longer off limits, they're obvious to everyone, and those fish are getting hit. No one can say with any certainty exactly how much impact that's having on future fish stocks, but it's certainly not zero. We know that for sure. So fewer spawning fish mean fewer baby fish, which means lower fish stocks, which leads to less fishing success, which in turn leads to fewer anglers fishing. It's bad news for the industry. But another big problem is forward-facing sonar's impact on fishing tournaments. You know, BASS and MLF, they get all of the headlines and all of the glory, but take those out of the equation and just look at weekend tournament anglers. Every weekend from sea to shining sea, there are plenty of tournaments that are more competitions for bragging rights and small pots, not really high-dollar tournaments. Historically, a guy in an aluminum John boat had almost as good of a chance as a guy in the finest Ranger. And that's what made those tournaments so attractive. You know, we've all participated in tournaments where it's not the guy with the best boat who wins, it's the guy with the best fishing skills. Well, now the electronics have gotten so advanced that literally, if you're that guy in that 14-foot John boat, you have no shot. You're donating your money to guys who have much more expensive equipment. In fact, I know a guy who fishes tournaments who's found a hump that for whatever reason only holds big fish, and it only holds big fish when they move up to this hump to feed. This guy will sit there and stare all day at that one hump with his forward-facing sonar. When a fish moves up to it, he casts to it and catches it. Not surprisingly, he does very, very well in tournaments. But you know, that's not really fishing. It's just playing a video game. And you know, advocates of forward-facing sonar say, okay, well, there's no guarantee those fish are gonna bite. You still have to fool them and then use your equipment to get them in the boat. Certainly, no doubt about it. But how many of those guys would willingly give up their forward-facing sonar because it doesn't give them a profound advantage? Zero. If you've got it, you're going to use it, and it's a game changer. We all know that. I don't have any hard data showing that tournament participation is down, but anecdotally, it just seems like it is, and I've talked to many people who feel the same way. Now, I'm certainly not advocating that forward-facing sonar be banned by either governments or tournament directors, but I do think that tournament directors need to come up with methods to equal the playing field so that guy in the 14-foot John boat with the two-stroke motor at least has a reasonable chance against the guy who can afford top-of-the-line equipment. Perhaps you have two categories, one for those using the technology and one for those who do not. Whatever. I would just hate to see our great tournament tradition that we have here in America go the way of the cane pole. We need to defend it for all we're worth. It's just way too important.